Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm delighted to be with you. It's Sunday, September 12th, day after September 11th, and pause to remember the people who were lost on that sad day in 2001. It's 20th anniversary of September 11th, and I'm sure it affected everybody who can hear this in some way, shape, or form. I wanted to start. So I use this forum to talk with you about astrology. I do requests. I did receive a request for Justin Bieber's chart, but the focus of this particular show is on world events, predictions of the world. I'd be happy to dedicate a show to celebrity charts, and I might do that at some time in the future. So, keep those requests coming in. Right now, I'm more concerned with world events. I'm not saying that Justin Bieber is not an important person to a lot of people. And as a matter of fact, quite a while ago, I received a request to do something on serial killers, and I also received requests to do basically like to change the format of the show a little bit to do like sketches and things like that, sort of like comedy routine on Vedic astrology. I don't know how good my comedy chops are, but well, but I'm open to exploring a variety of different things. But I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology. I'm here to talk with you about the first story I want to cover was really the California recall election, because it's right around the corner, September 14th. And I realize some of you won't be seeing this broadcast until after the recall has actually occurred, but I'm doing the recording on September 12th, and I did think that Governor Newsom had a strong chance of being recalled and being replaced, but I want to show you the charts. And by the way, just so I don't rush into things too strongly, this is a focus on Vedic astrology or Indian astrology or Jyotish, whatever you wish to call it. I don't think what it's called is as important as its structure and what it signifies in the chart. So this astrological system has basically uses a sidereal or a star-based zodiac, which essentially reorients the planets back almost one whole sign, 23 degrees back, and that also means sun signs are changed. So basically, let's say if a person in Western astrology is let's say, trying to think of a new sign, is a Taurus, they'll be in Aries in Indian astrology. And most of the time, after the 15th of the month, they retain their normal stars, their normal sun signs, and every planet in the chart is also pushed back. And astrology is a way of analyzing charts to look at potential for success or failure or rebirth. And basically, if we look at Governor Newsom's chart, so let's go to the California recall. And the past couple of weeks, I thought he was in trouble, and I still do to a certain extent. He's in, so his chart's a very good chart, obviously. I mean, you don't become governor of a state like California without having a really, really good chart. But this is Gavin Newsom's chart based on information I was able to look up online. And he was born October 10th, 1967, 5:13 a.m. in San Francisco, California. And he has a Jupiter-Venus conjunction in the first house. So this is a very good-looking man. You've seen pictures of him. He's like got like movie star good looks. And his son's in the second house, which is very, very good for success and for leadership. The downside of his chart is that he has Mercury with Ketu in the third house, which is actually not a bad combination for a politician. It can give a good public image, it can give a good ability to communicate well with people, but also it's sort of it's a good improvisational combination, let's put it that way, so people can make up things, right off the top of their heads. They're very good at analyzing things. They're very good at describing things, but they can also make up things out of whole cloth. So he has very good people skills in that way, and he can connect with people really, really well. Mars in the fourth, that's kind of a negative combination, but it's okay for a politician. The politician is going to have a lot of enemies, especially on home turf. So that's what that means. Moon in the fifth house, he's a very lucky guy, even though it's lower the 12th house. So we're getting into Vedic chart analysis. This is good for public service. Now, his problems started, let me just shrink this chart down. His problems really started, I would say, back in, I'm going to go two levels down. So you look over here, this is his most serious problems happened when he entered his Jupiter Ketu subperiod, which was around January 11th of 2021. And Ketu, interestingly enough, is a planet connected with humiliation. So if people gain positions, they can lose positions during Ketu subperiods. It doesn't always work that way. The sign in which Ketu sits is very strong, but it'll certainly give threats to his position or his authority. So you could look upon this as being essentially somebody trying to steal an election from him. The other point is he's right now in, so around January 11th. So he was in this Mercury period before then. It was just, I have to take my word for it, where essentially he was speaking a lot and doing a lot of things and acting. I'm just going to say, it's not judgmentally, but Mercury is kind of a careless planet at times, so the person's message can get mixed or it can get confused. And so he was acting, so a lot of people remember the incident where he went to the restaurant not wearing a mask, and it was with a large group of people. So that, and there have been a variety of complaints. I'm not going to get into the politics of the situation, but there have been a lot of complaints that California is just like murderously expensive to live in, and it's very difficult. So this is beyond anything connected with COVID. These are like serious internal problems California's having. And he's in a Saturn subperiod. So Saturn's in his 8th house, which is really sort of a sign connected with defeat. Okay, so this isn't auspicious for him. But if we look at the subperiods between now September 7th and September 15th, he's in a Saturn subperiod. So September 14th is the day of the recall. He does have by transit, and this is the day of the recall. And then go ahead as the day of the recall, then we'll go back to the main page. On the day of the recall, he has Mercury Mars in his 2nd house of speech, which indicates he's going to lie. Okay. It doesn't mean that he's going to necessarily rig the election. Okay, so just to get that out of the way, because that's how some news media are portraying this, that if he isn't recalled, it'll be viewed um, as a manipulation of the election and more conspiracy theories. I actually don't think that's going to be the result of this if he wins, if he stays in office. But he does have Venus in the same sign right now, which is a victory-giving planet as Mercury and Ketu, and he does have Jupiter essentially hitting Saturn by transit, which can give him a bit of an advantage. So before this Jupiter transit occurred, I would have said, I don't think it's going to be likely he's going to stay in office. With this combination, Mercury's really strong in this chart, in this transit chart. Venus is strong. Jupiter is very weak. So that's not going to bode well for people who want change. They'll tend to. So this year, just keep one thing in mind. This year is a play it safe kind of a year. And when I say that, it's not a year for reform, for changing leaders, for shifting leadership positions. It doesn't favor that. The year itself doesn't favor that. And it looks to me, given the chart, unless something really, really bizarre happens, that Newsom's going to stay in office. And the main reason I'm saying that is mainly because of this Mercury here, this Venus here, and this Jupiter here. Now, again, keep in mind, astrology is a 50-50 shot I have here. Astrology's, so in elections, it's like you toss a coin and you say, okay, he's going to get recalled or he's not going to get recalled. There could be surprises on election day with that Mercury-Mars combination. That's one of the things that does portend. But again, given its relationship to his chart, it sort of helps his chart. I'm gonna hedge my bets because this is one I'm really uncertain about. That Saturn subperiod is not really good. If we're looking at after December, it looks like a great period for him. It looks like a period in which he'll emerge triumphant. So it's possible that what we're going to see is a kind of a recount mania, maybe even extending into December, and him finally emerging victorious around that time. But if I'm looking at the chart, this guy is that Jupiter and Venus in the first house is very protective. It's very lucky. Venus being over Mercury. The only problem I run into is the subperiod Lord. So Ketu itself is not badly placed. Okay, so Ketu doesn't indicate a fall from position because the Lord of Ketu is in the first house, so that actually indicates a retention. But that Saturn is not favorable for him. So I'm going to come down. This is going to sound horrible. I'm going to come down saying it's too close to call, but favoring him staying in office. Okay, so let's go back to the. And I hate to hedge like that, but this is one that really has me scratching my head. So I'm just being honest with you. Okay. All right, so these are where the planets are right now. But like I said, based upon a variety of factors which are external to California, and like I said, Jupiter being weakened, it's not going to make people confident or sure of themselves enough to toss a Democrat out of office in favor of a conservative Republican. That's just, that's just been my experience. Jupiter Saturn conjunctions tend to favor Democrats. So we'll see what happens. The other thing we're looking at is, so this is a chart for right now, and we have a Pisces rising sign. So we're going to go back to the world at large. We have a Pisces rising sign. Jupiter's in the 12th house. So there's a lot of focus on debt all around the world. Obviously precipitated by things like COVID. There's a lot of anxiety in governmental structures. A lot of governments seem very worried or very concerned. Again, this is not really like a big news story to you folks out in the world. And Rahu's in the 3rd house, so people want more. They want more resolution. They want more certainty. But because of the Lord of the 3rd house, which is a house of communications, being in the 8th house, they're not getting a lot of communications right now. And I think one of the things you're looking at from combinations like this is there's a lot of discontent, and there's a lot of fear that people are essentially lying to them. And I think whenever I see a combination like that, there's a lot of civil unrest. There's a lot of anxiety about the government. Nobody really knows who to trust. The sun's in the 6th house, so a lot of people, not everybody, a lot of people are viewing the government as being sort of an enemy. And the government also is being somewhat antagonistic towards the people. And Venus in the 8th house does indicate communications are being, especially communications concerning illnesses or diseases, are being hidden. The Moon Ketu combination indicates kind of a fearful public, or an uncertain public, kind of expecting the worst. And again, keep in mind, these are broad generalizations. I'm not saying that everybody out there is in fear that the world is going to end tomorrow. That's not the case. It's more of a generalized anxiety. If we're looking at things like the markets, Jupiter's the Lord of speculation. It's retrograde. It's about to enter Capricorn. Actually, you'll probably see a market boost within the next couple of months because of Jupiter entering Capricorn, because it'll actually give a little bit of buoyancy. It'll also give a little bit of buoyancy to what I would call democratic or more universalistic initiatives, such as healthcare programs, social programs, infrastructure programs. But that Jupiter in the 12th house, these are going to be expensive. And there'll be a lot of fear connected with that. The 2nd house Lord is in the 7th house with Mars, like I said, general distrust. Again, not everybody feels this way, but just general distrust. But also, a lot of people are going to be extremely smart and extremely intelligent and know how to take advantage of this particular situation. So this is going to be a good time for lawyers, a good time for politicians, a good time for people seeking power. The Moon Ketu conjunction is troubling to me because it's the 5th house Lord, and that gives unexpected problems with luck, and it can also give unexpected problems with things like flooding and sea disasters. And we've seen a lot of tornadoes obviously coming through, or not tornadoes, hurricanes coming through in America. And Venus is in its own sign in the 8th house. So this looks to be kind of a rough period, really, for about another 7 days. until Mercury goes into the same sign with Venus. Then it'll be a little bit calmer. Okay. So this isn't a permanent situation. That's one thing I have to stress. The anxiety or the uncertainty which is showing up in this chart is a temporary phenomenon. Okay. So within 7 days, people will feel more certain of direction. The moon is only going to stay in the sign for about one more day. So that's really not a big, and then it'll move into Sagittarius and people will become more optimistic. Then towards the middle of the week, it'll move into Capricorn. People will be a little bit more grounded, more realistic. So these aren't like, and then it'll move into, and around the same time it moves into Capricorn, Jupiter moves into the same sign. So there'll be kind of a grounded optimism, which will come back. So right now, as we speak, this chart is a difficult chart. As the week progresses, especially after the 14th, the sun's going to move into the sign. There'll be a lot of arguments. Not violence, but let's say potential for violence over the next month or so because of the Sun-Mars conjunction, and potential for increases in diseases because of Jupiter aspecting Mars and the Sun, and that'll give a disease spread, but it'll also, and that'll last for about, oh gosh, I would say about a month because the sun's going to move into the next sign. Mars is going to move into the next sign. It won't be a long lasting, but the fallout will last through November, and probably around December we'll see some less panicky news about COVID spreading and the government wanting to just trying to think of the way to put it. You'll see the government actually start to form more pressure, or governments actually start to form more pressure in November. But I think overall, after the middle of November, you'll start to see them lift pressure, and a lot. And I'm not saying the vaccine mandates will go away, but they'll start to seem less ubiquitous. There'll be less fear, especially after mid-December. So it's a tough time. The next 2 months are a little bit. It's good for people who want to build something up. Okay, so Jupiter in Capricorn with Saturn is good for people who want to build businesses. It's typically a busy time for astrologers because everybody's a little bit afraid of that conjunction. Although Jupiter, it does help Saturn a little bit. It helps make people a little bit more agreeable to controls. And so you'll at least see, probably after February 14th, you're going to see a real change in the country, mainly because this subperiod will come in, and that's going to be a Mercury subperiod, and you'll start to see a more lively economy. But a lot of the things, I mean, right now we have Jupiter and Saturn retrograde around mid-October. They'll both turn direct, and you'll see the economy start to perk up again. You'll start to see it really start to activate again, and not just in the United States, but all around the world. Okay, so let's go over to the time and space change map. If you like what I'm doing, if this makes sense to you, I just want to talk about the nakshatras for a second. Moon is in Anuradha nakshatra, so people get help from friends with this one. They're looking for signs of help from friends. Ketu is stationary direct. I forgot to mention that. Stationary direct Ketus tend to give like really, really profound results. They're sort of like flags to wave, so there will be some kind of a shift in government over the next couple of months, and shift in public perception over the next couple of months. So that combination, I think, is going to be very important for people to keep in mind. It's not, so this is where a lot of the anger is coming from about people and COVID, and the COVID epidemic or pandemic, excuse me. And so Saturn's retrograde. So that's Saturn retrograde. Rahu is direct in the third house, so there'll be a lot of movement towards trying to make people comply, but also having people react. But as I said, keep something in mind. There will be an increased capacity for violence after September 15th. It's not something I'm looking forward to, but I'm just being honest with you folks. But I wouldn't be afraid to leave my house. I think it's going to be localized, and I think it's going to be directed at governments. The other thing, so we have, so let's look at California first. This is fascinating. Okay, so we have a descendant and a sun line over here near California, and a Mars line, descending Mars line in California. So the map, so again, I'm going to get myself in trouble. I know I am. But basically, there is some deceit going on, or some lying going on in the election. Again, it's not about fixing elections, so keep that in mind. But there's definitely a lot of lying going on. And when I say that, I tend to put both sides on the chopping block. That Mars Mercury conjunction it crosses up here in Canada in a relatively unpopulated area, but it engulfs really Arizona, New Mexico, California, Utah, Nevada. It's pretty, so the southwestern part of the United States is going to be in for some really major issues in terms of its government. It also goes down into Texas, and I'm sorry, not into Texas, into Mexico. And so there'll be kind of an upsurge in problems at the border between Mexico and Arizona, it appears to me. Okay, so like right here, this little spot right here. The other thing is you have Venus in the eighth house, so it's passing through Texas, so Texas is going to have some water damage, and also it's going all the way up to Oklahoma and up into the Dakotas and into Canada as well. Canada very rarely gets hurricanes. And let me go out to the west of here, to the Pacific Ocean, because that just affects Canada. And so Jupiter and Rahu, there'll be some storms out here, but nothing, I don't think, really significant. Hawaii does have some problems, some economic problems coming its way. The other parts of the country I'm a little bit worried about are New York through North Carolina, through Florida and down into Cuba and down into Peru and Ecuador, and other parts of the world, excuse me. And essentially, you have this long Saturn line also going through the Panama Canal, so there may be an accident or a disruption or a backlog or a bad storm in Panama. And if we go over here, we see Rahu and the moon passing over my home state, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. So there'll be some kind of a political unrest in Massachusetts, or some kind of panic in Massachusetts. And Jupiter's passing over. So Jupiter's finally passing over Brazil, which is good for Brazil, but Jupiter's weak, which is not good for Brazil. And Brazil's still in kind of a sorry state. They haven't gotten much of a break this past year. Brazil and Argentina are both in kind of a sorry state. So is Bolivia. So again, a lot of South America is in, even going up to Guyana. Yes, so there's a lot of panic, a lot of uncertainty in Brazil right now, especially around Rio, it looks like. So, not good news. The Venus line is somewhat good for Texas, so it's good for the economy in general in Texas. So that's good. There have been a lot of high tech companies moving in, but this is also one of the areas. Venus also rules things like women's rights and things like that. So again, we know there's a big abortion issue with the legislation that just got passed in Texas. I mean, in Texas, yeah. We have Sun and Mars lines passing primarily over Greenland, which is really not, it's not a significant center of population, but there may be more icebergs breaking off. Mercury's government's going to be in a little, I'm sorry, Iceland's government's going to be in a little bit of trouble during this period as well. And so is the Western African nations. Spain is going to see some economic problems. And you'll actually see a boost in the economy in between France and Germany and also in Turkey. But Turkey is also going to be facing some panicky situations because of Rahu, and we are going to have an eclipse in November. So I'm going to be covering that pretty intensively at the end of November and beginning of December. I'm going to be covering that pretty intensely over the next few broadcasts. But basically, Turkey is really more panic and more fear. Turkey, this entire line over Turkey, sort of like an earthquake zone all around here. And so there may be some minor earthquakes in the middle of Turkey, but nothing really affecting the large centers of population. It's going to be lousy for the smaller centers of population, undoubtedly, but the larger centers of population will be pretty much untouched. Some governmental scandals in Iran, Iraq, and some governmental uprisings in our friends in near Afghanistan. So there'll still be conflict in Afghanistan over the next month, which unsurprisingly. Some mistrust of the government in India. As we have this exalted Mercury line, it'll actually make the press much more active in India. And let me just see now. And we have a Venus line running through China. Now, Venus is in Libra, which is good. That's a good sign placement. It's Venus's second best position astrologically. However, it's in the 8th house in the chart that I drew up. So what does that mean in terms of, so there'll be some surprising developments from some hidden information coming out of China over the next month. And it'll be related to medicine. So I'm not even going to say there's going to be anything about the virus or its origin, but given this, will be a reveal of some information. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the Chinese engineered the virus, or that it was released from a lab. This looks more like eighth house matters of more accidental problems. You know, they're connected with conspiracies, but more often than not, they're connected with accidents. And this Venus line running up here, intersecting a Saturn line, does indicate the spread of more illnesses over here. The other thing we want to look at is the Philippines has this strong Rahu line passing through it, and the moon is connected with it. So Australia is still going to be in kind of a panicky situation. They're going to be a little bit worried about what's happening to them. Saturn line is extending through New Zealand, so New Zealand has been kind of uncertain or unstable over the past few months. It's not like it's on the border of revolution. That's not the idea, but they've been anxious. And Japan is experiencing a Rahu line, so they'll probably be a little bit worried as well. Okay, so this is not really this really isn't a problem. It's just a little bit of anxiety for Japan. And so let's go back. So in summary, we have economic problems around from New York State down through North Carolina, to the Carolinas, and into Florida. All right, so basically, the western part of the United States looks like there's going to be some political turmoil, some economic turmoil in the middle of the United States, but also some chance of hope or recovery on the East Coast, and also some level of anxiety around Massachusetts, Rhode Island, but not really lasting that long. Brazil and all of South America is in kind of difficult shape, but that'll pass. And the other areas I want to focus on, which are a little bit problematic, are so France and Germany look okay. England looks reasonably okay. Spain looks like it's in trouble though, and Northern Africa definitely, all the way down to through South Africa. And finally, we're going to see some political crises in India and also in China and also in Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. So it looks like a really fun week. All right. So don't get discouraged. This is only a temporary situation. Like I said, in about 7 days, a lot of these things will come down. All right. So let's look at the individual signs for this week. Let's go back to the chart. And I have a little bit of extra time, I think, on the recording, but I'm not going to chance it because I had an interruption from a phone call, and I apologize to you folks. By the way, this gives me a good time for you to share, to encourage you to share, like, push that subscribe button. We're almost up to 300. You know, not really record-breaking numbers, but it's something. That's a help. And keep it, you know, so slow and steady wins the race. We're gonna be big, but I do need your help to do it. So and again, I am going to be having more guests on. Dr. Simone will be back. Lolita will be back. I'm going to have more guests on I think you'll enjoy what we have going on. Still haven't forgotten about my music, the music part that I promised you, and that you may not like me for. I don't know, but I think you'll be fascinated by it, just because there's a lot of what I would call undiscovered music out there, and some of it's really, really good. All right, so getting back to this part. So for Aries, this month or this week, these next 7 days, again, some dissatisfaction with money. These are recurring themes, but more confidence in the ability to make money, more luck in terms of making money, more ability to defeat enemies through argument rather than through just shutting them up. Okay, so you'll be able to have more victories in speech and more competitive strength. Venus is in the 7th house, actually good for relationship life for those of you who have Aries suns or Aries moons or Aries rising. Moon and Ketu in the 8th house, a little bit of worry about status in the world, a little bit of worry about being anonymous, but that won't last long at all. That only lasts for a couple of days. And Saturn, and also some people will be recovering from illnesses because of this. Saturn's in the 10th house, very good for career growth, and you'll see a lot of career growth over the next couple of months because of Jupiter hitting the same sign as Saturn. Money will actually start to come in a little bit more strongly with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction for career, but you'll also be spending more money on self-improvement. But Taurus has Rahu in the 1st house, as we've had for quite a few months. It won't leave until next March, but this Rahu is stationary direct, so it actually means some fame or some recognition to Tauruses out there, or Taurians, however you want to say it. Also, some disappointment or some dismay in relationship life. So keep in mind, Taurus is the sign which is having relationship issues this year. It's not really horrific, but it is a little worrisome. And the next house we're looking at, we have Mercury is Lord of the 3rd house, speech or communication. So there may be a temptation to misrepresent yourself in order to gain a competitive advantage, or in order to fool the kids, but it will increase your luck. So use it strategically, use it ethically, but you'll be able to fool a lot of people. But again, if you use it for a good end, that's not really such a bad thing. Venus is in the 6th house. Some problems with illnesses or some feelings of being a little bit stressed out. Moon Ketu conjunction is in the 7th house. So again, worries about status, worries about position in the world, mainly because of disagreements with spouse or relationship partners, or maybe even just loneliness. 8th house Lord is Jupiter, placed in the 10th house. So career will be connected with research. And finally, Saturn is Lord of the 9th house. So again, slow but steady progress. Saturn's aspecting the Sri Lagna, which has to do with money, but you'll also see increased gains because and defeat of enemies, because Mars is the Lord of the house of losses is in the 6th house. So they call that a Repeat Raj Yoga, which is very lucky. Gemini, rising sun or moon. For this particular sign, Vyasipati, which is a little upagraha or a little planet, is in the 1st house. So there's a little bit of anxiety connected with this rising sign. It's not significant, but a little bit of uncertainty about status in the world. And they've probably been spending a lot of money on trying to improve themselves, which is commendable, but it's going to it really won't pay off until next March, unfortunately. The other thing that shows up is the second house lord is the moon. So there'll be some worry about family or family illness again, especially some problems with mother. For sun, sun's in the third house, so there'll be more confidence for the sign. Mars is in the fourth house with Mercury, so this sign will be very, very focused on increasing status, increasing position in life. And fifth house lord is Venus, so this indicates some possibility of love affairs or romantic involvements. But again, anxiety about it, wondering whether or not it's going to be permanent or stable. Okay. Seventh house lord is Jupiter. Jupiter's is in the ninth house, so it does indicate an expansion of luck or opportunities. And Jupiter and Saturn in the eighth house indicates the next 2 months will be spent researching or working on writing. And mostly career life will be spent around writing over the next couple of months, and doing research, although it will be financially beneficial. Mars is in the 11th house. The Lord is in the fourth house, so at least from this chart, that does tend to give gains from people, from clients and customers. And Rahu in the 12th house, as I said before, a lot of expenses, unfortunately. All right, Cancer. Cancer has, the Lord of Cancer is in the fifth house. It's a little bit difficultly placed because it's in the same sign with the moon, with Ketu. So there's a little bit of uncertainty about status, a little bit of negativity about success. But with the sun in the second house, this sign will achieve a great deal of success. Mars and Mercury, there'll be a lot of opportunities to write, to speak. Venus is in the fourth house. Home life will be relatively content or calm. And Moon is in the fifth house, which will give some worry or anxiety about children. But again, like I said, it's just very, very quick. And also love affairs, anxiety about love affairs. And sixth house has no planets in the Lord of the sixth is in the eighth, so it does indicate an end to problems, although relationship life, long-term relationship life will turn into problems or will turn kind of disappointing over the next couple of months. And with this particular sign in the ninth house, there'll be an expansion of luck, an expansion of publicity because of relationship life. So that'll be the positive side of it. And career-wise, you'll see actually an uptick in recognition or fame. And Rahu in the 11th house, an achievement of goals. No planets are in the 12th house, but again, expenses because of ambition. Okay, so you need to spend money to make money, right? Okay, for Leo, Leo's in, I'm sorry, Sun's in Leo, and that's a very lucky placement. It indicates help from parents, help from people in positions of authority. Mars and Mercury are in the second house, so again, good ability to represent yourself, think quickly on your feet, make a lot of money. Venus is in the third. The sign will be very diplomatic this week. It'll be more able to make good contacts and insinuate itself into situations just by diplomacy. Some anxiety about status that shows up from this particular sign, but again, really quick. It's over by Tuesday at the latest. The other combination here is the fifth house lord is in the eighth house, so anxiety about children, but again disappearing as the fifth lord goes into the sixth house. So that'll continue the anxiety about children, maybe worry about children's health problems or worry about the health of love affairs or communications with partners. No planets in the seventh house for the first time in a while. And but the Sri Lagna will be in the eighth house, so there'll be unexpected gains or unexpected financial increases, increments. Ninth house has Mars in it, or his Lord is Mars, so there will be increased financial luck, especially through property, if you're engaged in that kind of activity. And Rahu's in the 10th house, so this will give some fame or recognition. And 11th house Lord is in the second and very good financial gains. So this is what's called Adana Yoga in Vedic astrology. So worry about losses, but also financial gains at the same time. So that's good. For Virgo, Mars and Mercury in the first house is a good combination for overcoming enemies, for realizing ambitions, for moving forward in the right. There's some anxiety, you won't be able to get what you want, but again, like I said, that'll be gone within a couple of days. And Venus is in the second house, so it's a very good yoga for or combination for money. So people will get a lot of money through speaking or through contacting people or through just calming them down. The moon is in the third house, so there is a fear that this sign's ambitions won't be fulfilled, but again, it's a temporary problem. And Jupiter is Lord of the fourth house. It'll be in the fifth, so actually this sign's luck will improve a lot over the next couple of months. Finally, Jupiter, the Sri Lagna is in the seventh house, so it is a prosperous period for the sign. Rahu's in the ninth, it'll give a good career boost. And the Lord of the 10th is in the first, so career life will be very important to these individuals. But they do have to worry about unseen enemies or people wishing them bad luck. For Libra rising, Venus is in its own sign in Libra. That's really good for Libras. Okay. So, and also it indicates that they'll actually achieve relationship partner goals this month. And the Moon Ketu combination, again, some anxiety over money, but that won't last very long at all. Like I said, 2 days maximum. But that and also anxiety over career. Saturn's in the fourth house. Still some problems at home. Probably won't be resolved for about another few months, or at least until mid-October. And Jupiter's in the fifth house, also moves to the fourth, so that'll speed up the process about getting home issues resolved. The sixth house Lord is also ruled by Jupiter for this rising sign, so that's going to be in the fourth house. So there'll be some struggles connected with home, still some delays, but not really past mid-October. And finally, seventh house Lord is in the 12th, so there'll be interest in long-term relationships, but there will also be some concern over worry or people lying to them. Rahu's in the eighth, there'll be an interest in accumulating wealth or financial status. Sun's in the 11th house, so good for financial gains and financial improvement. Mercury's in the 12th, good for spiritual life for this sign, and also good for learning. For Scorpio, Scorpio has Moon and Ketu in the first house, so Moon is debilitated in Scorpio. So this sign will have a lot of worry about relationship life. Jupiter's the Lord of the second house. It's going to move to the third house within about a day or so. And you'll start to see less pessimism about relationship life and more optimism about financial life within a couple of days. More stable nature. The Sri Lagna is in the fifth house, so that's good for financial gains. Rahu's in the seventh, so there's going to be some concern about arguments with relationship partners. Eighth house Lord is Mercury. There'll be some financial gains for this sign, maybe through inheritances or unexpected windfalls. And the ninth house Lord is the Moon. So this is actually a lucky placement. This sign will be lucky this week. Career-wise, they'll gain a great deal of recognition, and even romantically, it'll gain a great deal of recognition, okay? Or a great deal of opportunity. but there will be problems in relationship life. Sagittarius has Saturn, soon to be joined by Jupiter in the second house, so that'll increase this sign's financial status. And street lights in the third house, so strong desire for money. Children will be unruly, but will do well. With Rahu in the fifth house. Seventh house seventh house has no planets in it, although there will be concerns about lies from relationship partners. And ninth house has the sun in it, so there'll be assistance from the government or rewards from the government. Some worry about financial status or financial ability, but Venus will be in the 11th house, so that should be largely a matter of a little relevance about a week from now. For Capricorn, Capricorn has Jupiter in the second house right now. It'll have Jupiter in the first house, so that'll give good opportunities to a lot of Capricorns. It'll make them very ambitious. It'll also allow them to control their families more, although children will be a little bit unruly. Sun is in the 8th house, so possible rewards from the government. Excuse me, my articulation. And we have a Mercury-Mars conjunction in the 9th house, which is good for gains from the government and also good for gains from relatives. Venus is in the 10th house, so career life will go very, very smoothly over the next month for this sign. For Aquarius, Aquarius has Jupiter in the first house right now. It'll go back to the 12th house. So this sign has had kind of an up and down year. Relationship life will be in kind of an intense importance to this sign over the next few months. And relationship life, I'm going to stop the share and just make sure share is still working. Because I ask go on pause and share. All right, so relationship life will be extremely important to the sign, and there'll be some worry about relationship partners being abusive or taking advantage, and some disarray and some concern about career recognition from this combination right here. But luck is good for this sign. Venus is the best planet for this possible for this sign. It's very lucky. Venus is very well placed to help out Aquarius, so this actually should be a good month for Aquarius. Finally, Pisces. Pisces has Rahu in the 3rd house. It'll be very ambitious. It'll have good financial gains. It'll have good support from the government with some effort. Good support from relationship partners, although relationship partners or business partners will seem to be a little bit dishonest. Good financial gains from legacies or from people or from inheritances. Some concern over luck or being stolen or having material stolen from it. But that'll, again, like I said, that'll be gone in a couple of days. And finally, Saturn in the 11th house with Jupiter, good for financial gains. That's it for this week. I'm sorry the last part was a little bit rushed, but I don't think I have a lot of time left. And if you want to see more, let me know. If you want to see different types of things, different types of charts, let me know. Again, please hit the like button, hit the smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. Tell your friends about me. I'm still accepting students. I'm still doing readings. So please contact me at 508-525-0001. Thank you very much. Have a great week and namaste.